The air was poison. The ground burned skin in seconds, and the temperature froze fluids solid on this unlivable, God-forsaken hellhole of a planet. But humanity came anyway. Xander accelerated his scout ship along the arid, cratered surface of Kepler 1649c, in view of the freshly constructed Romulan research outpost on the planet's outskirts. The Romulan High Command always wanted isolated spots to develop restricted weapons tech. Nothing was as isolated as this barren rock, picked up on long-range scans at the edge of space. No life could be sustained here. The atmosphere was utterly toxic to carbon-based respiration, and the temperature extremes shattered even hardened alloys. This world was perfect for Romulan secrets, and it would stay a secret if Xander had anything to say about it. He had already transmitted his initial findings back to High Command. They swiftly responded with the directive to establish the hidden base and begin work at once. Now the last components clicked into place. Xander prepared to send the final confirmation comm back to Romulus that the facility was operational. His finger hovered over the transmit key. Xander furrowed his brow. His scanners blinked with an anomalous reading. An unidentified ship was entering the outer perimeter of the system. Xander quickly took a few readings of its warp signature, matching its frequency harmonics against known profiles in his database. His lips curled into a wicked grin. Human, a Federation ship. What were they doing out here, so far from their normal patrols and shipping lanes? No matter. If they came here, if they found what the Romulans were up to, they would need to be eliminated without hesitation. This hellish world would claim a few more souls unfit to endure it. The human vessel approached on an intercept trajectory, no doubt tracking the strange energy readings the active outpost was now emitting. Xander quickly sent an emergency message burst to High Command, alerting them to his planned ambush against the enemy intruders. He would show them the folly of crossing the Romulans. No human could survive here for long, but just in case they tried, Xander would be ready to greet them with disruptor blasts and ensure none made it off the surface. Zachary clutched the stolen Romulan disruptor rifle tight to his chest as he crested another jagged rock outcropping. The merciless wind whipped at his face, stinging his eyes, but he trudged on, one foot in front of the other. He had to stay ahead of Xander. That Romulan bastard was hot on his tail, hungry for blood after Zachary's escape. The hellish landscape stretched out before Zachary, an endless expanse of toxic air and searing ground. His environmental suit shielded him, but every breath still felt caustic in his lungs. He checked his scanner. There, 2 clicks west. An abandoned structure the Romulans had left behind. Maybe it held something useful. Zachary sprinted toward it, boots pounding the scorched earth. He shouldered through the rusted door, disruptor leveled. Inside, broken terminals flickered. He pried off an access panel, splicing his tricorder leads into the circuitry. Come on, there. Data scrolled across his screen, outpost schematics, guard rotations, and something else, something horrific. Bioweapon specs. This place was more than a listening post. The Romulans were cooking up something that could scour whole worlds of life. Zachary gritted his teeth. Like hell, he'd let them get away with this. A disruptor blast sizzled past Zachary's head, showering him with sparks. He whirled, returning fire. Xander crouched in the entryway, a cruel smirk on his angular features. You can't run forever, human, Xander spat, unleashing another volley. This planet will be your grave. Zachary dove for cover, squeezing off shots. Not if I put you in the ground first, you pointy-eared prick. They traded fire, beams crisscrossing the cramped lab. Consoles exploded in showers of metal and glass. Zachary rolled, lined up his sights, and drilled Xander's rifle with a sustained burst. The disruptor sparked and died. Its power cell ruptured. Xander roared in rage, hurling the damaged weapon aside. He lunged at Zachary, grappling for the human's throat. They crashed against the bulkhead, locked in desperate struggle. Zachary brought his knee up hard into Xander's gut. The Romulan doubled over, wheezing. Zachary cracked him across the jaw, sending him sprawling. No time to finish this. He had to find his crew. Leaving Xander dazed on the floor, Zachary sprinted for the outpost. He used the pilfered layout to sneak past guard posts and security drones. There, in the detention block, a cluster of human life signs. His crew, beaten and shackled but alive. Zachary cut them free, supporting his groggy first officer. "Zach, knew you'd come—" The officer coughed, blood flecking his lips. "I'm getting you out of here," Zachary vowed, passing out captured disruptors. "All of you, but first we're shutting this place down." They stormed the research levels, shooting guards and smashing equipment. Zachary planted demo charges on the bioweapon containment tanks, his final fuck you to the Romulan Empire. Alarms blared as they raced for the shuttle bay. Xander's voice boomed over the comm, choked with fury. "Zachary, I will flay the skin from your bones." Disruptor bolts filled the corridors. Romulans poured from every junction, forcing them back. They took cover in the nearest lab module, slamming the blast doors. Zachary and his crew crouched behind overturned tables, panting. Dread settled in his gut. They were cut off, outnumbered, outgunned. This was it. The Alamo. He looked to his people, wounded, exhausted, but still defiant. He offered them a weary smile. "Been an honor serving with you. What do you say we show these Romulan bastards what humans are made of?" His crew roared their agreement, checking their weapons. The barricaded doors shuddered as the Romulans began cutting through. Zachary raised his disruptor and aimed it squarely at the weakening barricade. "Come on, you sons of bitches," he growled under his breath. "Come and get some." The barricaded doors of the lab shuddered as the Romulans unleashed disruptor fire, the metal beginning to buckle and melt. Zachary gritted his teeth. They didn't have long. "Fan out! Find anything we can use," Zachary barked to his crew. They rummaged through the debris and wreckage frantically. "Sir, over here," one of the crew called out. Zachary rushed over. The crewman held up a strange device, angular and covered in Romulan script. "I think it's a cloaking device prototype." Zachary grabbed it, turning it over in his hands. "Can we use it?" "It's unstable," his first officer said, limping over. He was pale, his uniform stained with green blood. "I can try to operate it. Give you a chance to get out of here." Zachary clasped his shoulder. "No way, I'm not leaving you behind." "You have to." The first officer met his gaze, determined. "I'll buy you the time you need." Zachary hesitated, then nodded grimly. "All right, we'll split up. Half of you with me. We're going to raise hell and draw their fire. The rest of you with him. Get to their shuttle bay." The crew divided up weapons and supplies. Zachary pulled his first officer into a quick embrace. "Give 'em hell." "Aye, sir." Zachary and his team took up positions by the doors. He armed a demo charge, then nodded to his people. They braced themselves. The doors exploded inward. Zachary hurled a grenade through the smoke. "Move!" They charged out, firing wildly. Romulans scattered for cover. Zachary led his team in a fighting retreat, laying down, suppressing fire. Xander rallied his soldiers, snarling orders. "After them, don't let them escape." Disruptor beams crisscrossed the corridors as Zachary and Xander's forces clashed. Bulkheads exploded, bodies hit the deck. Zachary rolled and snapped off shots, downing Romulans left and right. He caught a glimpse of Xander through the chaos, firing with cold precision. Their eyes locked. Xander's burned with anger and something else. Respect? No time to dwell on it. Zachary lobbed his last grenade and sprinted for the next junction. He had to keep the Romulans focused on him. Meanwhile, the cloaked team crept through the shadows, making for the shuttle bay. Zachary's first officer gripped the cloaking device, his face lined with pain and concentration. They emerged into the cavernous bay. A Romulan shuttle sat unguarded. The officer ushered the team aboard, then slammed his fist on the cloak button. The ship shimmered out of existence. The officer collapsed into the pilot seat, engaging engines. The shuttle rocketed out of the bay, streaking for open sky. Proximity alerts blared. The cloak failed, flickering the ship back into view. The officer paled. They were exposed, easy prey for the Romulan weapons locks. But no shots came. The warbirds hung silent in space. Xander's voice crackled over comms. "Let them go!" The Romulan fighters peeled off, returning to base. The officer gaped in shock, then punched the warp drive. The shuttle vanished into the stars. Zachary and his team burst onto the landing pad, ragged and bloody but alive. They watched the shuttle disappear, hope kindling in their chests. Then they saw the Odyssey, trailing smoke and debris in orbit. Zachary's heart seized. New crisis, no backup, no way out. The Romulans had beaten them here, and the battle was just beginning. Zachary slumped into the pilot's chair of the stolen Romulan shuttle, his breath coming in ragged gasps. His crew gathered around him, their faces grim as they surveyed the damage to the USS Odyssey on the view screen. Plasma fires flickered along its hull, escape pods jettisoning from the crippled starship. "We can't leave them like this," Zachary growled, his fists clenching. "We have to find a way to help." His first officer leaned over the sensor console, his brow furrowed. "The Romulan warship's weapons are still locked on. One more salvo and the Odyssey's finished." Zachary's mind raced, desperation clawing at his gut. Then it hit him, a crazy, reckless idea. But their only shot. He snatched up the stolen Romulan communicator and hailed Xander's frequency. "Xander, you pointy-eared bastard, I know you're listening." A tense beat. Then Xander's voice crackled through, laced with irritation. "What do you want, human, here to gloat?" "Stow it," Zachary snapped. "We've got bigger problems. Looks like one of your commanders has gone rogue. He's not responding to your orders." Silence stretched over the channel. When Xander spoke again, his tone was icy. "Explain." "He's still firing on my ship, even though you called off the attack, and I'm betting he's not going to stop there." Xander's voice tightened. "What are you proposing?" "A temporary truce, just until we take this son of a bitch down. You want to keep your honor intact, prove you can control your own people." Another loaded pause, then a terse reply. "I'm listening." Zachary outlined his plan, a joint strike team infiltrating the warship to disable its weapons and confront the rogue commander. Xander agreed, his voice clipped but resolute. Minutes later, Zachary and Xander materialized side by side in the shuttle's transporter room, a hand-picked squad of their toughest fighters behind them. Zachary met Xander's eyes, giving a curt nod, a temporary alliance forged in the fires of necessity. They synced their weapons and activated the cloaking device. The shuttle glided unseen through the void, angling towards the looming warship's underbelly. Its shields flickered, weakened by the device's dampening field. "Cutting it close," Xander muttered as the shuttle slipped through the shield perimeter with centimeters to spare. Proximity alarms blared through the cabin. "Quit whining and get ready," Zachary shot back, checking his disruptor rifle. "Breaching in 3, 2, 1. The shuttle lurched as the docking clamps engaged, its airlock hissing open. Zachary and Xander charged out, weapons blazing, their teams fanning out behind them. Startled, Romulan crewmen fell before their onslaught, disruptor blasts scorching the bulkheads. They pushed deeper into the bowels of the ship, a deadly force united in purpose. Zachary took point, Xander close behind. A Romulan soldier leaped from a maintenance duct, tackling Zachary to the deck. Zachary's rifle skittered away as they grappled, exchanging punishing blows. The Romulan drew a curved knife, slashing at Zachary's face. Zachary caught his wrist, the two straining against each other. The blade inched closer to Zachary's eye. A green disruptor bolt seared the air centimeters from Zachary's head, catching the Romulan in the temple. He slumped to the side, dead before he hit the deck. Zachary rolled to his feet, scooping up his rifle. Xander lowered his own weapon, the barrel still smoking. "I had him," Zachary grunted, but there was a flicker of gratitude in his eyes. "Of course you did," Xander replied, a trace of humor in his voice. "Watch your back, human." They pressed on, a trail of Romulan bodies marking their path. Zachary marveled at Xander's efficiency, the economy of motion in every shot, every takedown. A grudging respect kindled in his chest. They reached a sealed bulkhead, the biohazard warnings confirming Zachary's worst fears. The rogue commander had the bioweapon, and he meant to use it. Zachary and Xander exchanged a terse glance, then took up positions on either side of the hatch. Zachary nodded. Xander keyed the release. The door slid open, a nightmarish scene bathed in strobing red light. A towering containment tank dominated the center of the room, swirling with a sickly green mist. The rogue commander stood before it, his face twisted in a mad grin. "Fools," he snarled, his hand hovering over the release control. "You're too late. I will bring glory to the Empire, and none shall stand in my way." Zachary stepped forward, his rifle leveled at the commander's chest. "It's over. Stand down and maybe you'll live to see a trial." The commander laughed, a cruel bark. "A trial? By the corrupt fools who have led our people to ruin? No. I will seize our destiny no matter the cost." His finger stabbed down on the release, the tank shuddering as it prepared to vent its lethal payload. Zachary squeezed the trigger. The disruptor bolt punched through the commander's shoulder, spinning him away from the console, but it was too late. Xander lunged past Zachary, slamming his fist down on the emergency override. The tank hissed and sealed itself, the bioweapon contained. Zachary exhaled in relief. The wounded commander scrabbled for his disruptor pistol. Zachary and Xander dove for cover as searing bolts filled the air. They returned fire, the commander's body jerking as he was riddled with impacts. He toppled back, his chest a smoking ruin. Zachary and Xander rose cautiously, sweeping the room for any remaining threats. Silence settled over the chamber, broken only by the fading whine of disruptor capacitors and the clunk of the containment tank locking down. Zachary turned to Xander, a wry smile tugging at his lips. "Not bad for a Romulan." Xander holstered his disruptor, his eyes glinting. "And you fight well for a human." He extended his hand. Zachary clasped it firmly, warrior to warrior. A truce baptized in fire and blood. But there would be a reckoning when this was done. For now they had a ship to secure and a crew to save. Side by side they strode from the chamber, ready to face the challenges ahead. Together, if only for this fleeting moment. The battle was won, but the war raged on. As the smoke cleared from the confrontation on the bridge, Zachary and Xander lowered their weapons, surveying the carnage. The bodies of the saboteurs littered the deck, the stench of seared flesh mixing with the acrid tang of fried circuitry. Zachary knelt beside his fallen first officer, cradling the man's head in his lap. Blood stained the front of the officer's uniform, his breathing shallow and labored. Zachary gripped his hand, his voice thick with emotion. "Stay with me, damn it, that's an order." The officer coughed, flecks of red speckling his lips. "Sorry, sir, looks like I'm going to have to disobey this one." Zachary shook his head, tears blurring his vision. "No, you're not getting off that easy. We still need you." The officer managed a weak smile. "You've got this, Zach, you always have." His eyes drifted shut, his body going limp in Zachary's arms. Zachary bowed his head, grief and rage warring in his chest. He gently laid the officer down, then stood, turning to face Xander. The Romulan commander was hunched over a sparking console, his fingers flying over the controls. Alarms blared throughout the bridge, the deck shuddering beneath their feet. "The warp core is going critical," Xander shouted over the din. "We have minutes before it breaches." Zachary joined him at the console, scanning the readouts. "Can we eject it?" Xander shook his head. "The release mechanism is fused. It has to be done manually." Zachary met his gaze, understanding passing between them. "I'll do it." Xander gripped his arm. "No, you're needed here to lead your people." "And what about you?" Xander's mouth twisted in a wry smile. "I've made my choices. It's time I face the consequences." Before Zachary could argue, Xander slammed his hand down on the transporter control. Zachary felt the tingle of the beam enveloping him, the bridge of the Odyssey dissolving into shimmering light. He materialized on the Romulan warship, his crew appearing around him. They looked to him, confused and frightened. Zachary staggered to the view screen, watching helplessly as the Odyssey hung in space, her hull buckling and deforming as the warp core reached critical mass. "Xander, don't do this," he screamed into the calm, knowing it was futile. The Romulan's voice crackled through the speakers, calm and resolute. "It's the only way, Zachary, you know that." "Damn you, you green-blooded bastard, I won't let you—" The transmission cut off. On the view screen, a blinding flash erupted from the Odyssey's engineering section. For a moment, the ship seemed to hang suspended, a miniature sun burning at her heart. Then the warp core stabilized. The glow faded, the Odyssey's hull cooling from white-hot to dull red. She listed drunkenly, her running lights flickering, but she held together. Zachary sagged against the console, his head bowed. Xander had done it, he had saved them all. But at what cost? The Romulan warship turned, preparing to go to warp. Zachary watched the Odyssey recede, a battered shell of her former self. Just like her crew, just like him. As the stars stretched into infinity and the ship leaped to warp, Zachary felt a hollowness settle in his chest. They had won, but it didn't feel like a victory. Too much had been lost, too many sacrifices made. And for what? A few more hours of borrowed time in an uncaring universe. Zachary clenched his fists, his nails biting into his palms. No, he wouldn't let it end like this. He wouldn't let their deaths be in vain. Somehow, someday, he would find a way to make it right, to give meaning to the lives spent in this cold and endless void. It was all he had left to cling to. The Romulan warship streaked through the darkness, bearing its haunted cargo of survivors towards an uncertain future. And on the bridge, Zachary kept his vigil. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.